If you've walked into the grocery store lately, you might have done a double take at the beef section. What used to feel like a treat now feels like a budget decision. In today's video, we're digging into why beef prices are surging in the United States, how national policy decisions are playing a role, and what this means for you folks right here in Wisconsin. Stay with me, because if you think this is just a price hike story, it's much more than that. Let's start with the big picture. Across the US, beef prices are hitting record highs. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, ground beef recently passed around $6 per pound in many markets. There is one key driver for this new high price. The U.S. cattle herd is at its smallest level in decades. Drought, high feed costs, and other supply-side constraints are tightening the pipeline. On the demand side, Americans still love beef. Consumption remains strong, so when supply is squeezed and demand holds, prices go up. For example, one Wisconsin-based reporting found that beef prices rose nearly 9% since January. Beef is now selling for $9.26 per pound in some local pockets of Wisconsin, and supply won't bounce back overnight. Herd recovery takes time. One source estimates production may decline further in 2026. So now, we've got a situation of low supply plus steady demand plus structural constraints. It's gonna equal higher prices. Now, let's talk about policy, and in particular, how decisions under Donald Trump's administration are interacting with this market. First, let's talk trade and imports. The U.S. imports lean beef trimmings and other beef cuts. If U.S. import policy or tariffs change, that affects availability and cost. In some cases, tariffs on major beef exporting countries like Brazil were raised under the Trump administration policies, which could tighten supply and raise consumer prices. At the same time, Trump has a plan to quadruple open beef imports from Argentina, which currently make up only 2% of U.S. beef imports. U.S. ranchers and industry groups are strongly opposed to this plan because they say it undercuts American producers. Experts believe Argentina doesn't have nearly enough export capacity to meaningfully reduce U.S. beef prices. In fact, much of what Argentina would export is lean beef trimmings used in ground beef blends, meaning premium cuts, such as steaks and sirloins, are unlikely to see price relief. The proposed imports are seen as even contradictory to prior America First policies that emphasize boosting domestic production and restricting imports. In summary, while lowering consumer prices is the stated goal, many stakeholders argue the actual impact on grocery store prices with this Argentina import policy will be minimal. Let's zoom in on Wisconsin for a second. For consumers in Wisconsin, as noted above, beef prices locally are significantly up. The figure of $9.26 per pound in some places is absolutely striking. That means households are spending more for ground beef or steak, or choosing alternatives. For producers in Wisconsin, though the state is better known for dairy, beef production still plays a role. A report said that in Wisconsin, the commercial cattle slaughter in 2024 was 6.5% lower than in 2023. That decline mirrors national shrinkage of supply. Also, Wisconsin producers are subject to the same feed and labor and processing cost pressures as others. If processing capacity is constrained, local ranchers may face bottlenecks or higher costs. On the policy front of things, Wisconsin beef producers are watching national decisions on trade, imports, and tariffs because they affect how competitive U.S. beef is versus foreign beef. Some in Wisconsin argue that foreign beef deals under the Trump administration may create downward pressure on U.S. ranchers even if consumer prices stay high. So for my Wisconsinites out there, higher beef prices means higher grocery bills for families. For ranchers, the opportunity of high price is there, but also risk because costs are elevated and supply is constrained. And for this state's economy, when the local agriculture sector faces stress, that affects rural communities, processing jobs, local feed and hay markets, and more. What should you be monitoring going forward as a Wisconsinite and as an American? Herd size and cattle inventory reports. It's important to check this out because if the number of beef cows increases, supply may improve. But many reports say herd building is slow and takes time. It's also important to keep your eye on trade policy announcements, whether it's with Argentina, Brazil, or another foreign country, can shift supply balance. For Wisconsin viewers, if you're a consumer, you might want to consider buying local beef if possible, comparing alternative proteins, adjusting expectations for grill season. If you're a rancher, keep close tabs on import costs such as feed, hay, and labor. Look at marketing windows And consider how national policy will affect your business, because it will. In fact, one expert cautioned that it's going to be more of a plateau of elevated prices for the next 2 to 4 years. On the policy side, transparency around imports, support for processing in rural states like Wisconsin, and stable labor policy all matter for all Americans. In summary, beef prices are surging in the US because supply is tight, demand remains strong, and policy under Donald Trump, especially around trade, imports, and tariffs, is influencing the trajectory of these high prices and the speed of recovery, which is slow. And for Wisconsin, that means higher prices at the store, significant cost pressures for ranchers, and ripple effects in rural economies statewide. If you found this breakdown helpful, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into policy. I also invite you to leave a comment. How have beef prices affected your grocery bill or your farm? If you're in Wisconsin specifically, what are you seeing locally? Let us know what you think the Wisco Project should dive into next. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.